Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I am the Omni viewer, and as is my tradition, now that I've released a new book, I'm going to do a little video explaining what that book is and why you might be interested in picking it up. The compilation, of course, is entitled Assorted Absurdities, Tales of Kaijupunk and Other Genres. It is, to date, my shortest publication. In paperback form, it's only like 130 plus pages, because it's all comprised of short stories. 8 stories in total, plus a little bonus essay at the end, author's notes, things like that. But these are all short stories. In fact, this is representative of the vast majority of my writing. I write a lot of short stories. I am working on the sequels to the novels, and they're going to be novel length, I promise you, but I write a lot of short stories in between all of that because I always feel that the story should be as long as it needs to be. Write it until it's finished, and however long it is how long it is. No padding if you can help it or anything like that. That's actually a similar philosophy to what Edgar Allan Poe had, which is why he only ever wrote one novel-length story. And, well, I've got quite a few of them. These are the ones I felt were among my strongest, and the ones that I felt were really, with some tweaking, ready to get out there. Hopefully, you guys agree that they are good, but I can't control that. Now, I know what some of you are wondering. I've even had 1 or 2 people ask me directly already, but I anticipated this question anyway. Are these short stories set in the same universe as my other 3 books, Operation Red Dragon, Occult Mafia, and Emerald of Maddox City? Quick aside before I get to answering that question, I'm no longer calling that shared universe the Omniverse because I've looked around, I've had other people look around as well. Omniverse is a term that's popped up in a lot of different places, so I'd rather avoid using that term lest it land me in some trouble. For now, the name I'm going with for the shared universe is Tales from the Omni Vault. That hasn't been used yet. If I come up with something better, I'll let you guys know, but for right now, Tales from the Omni Vault is the new name. So, are these short stories part of the Omni Vault universe? Well, the short answer is, some of them are, but most of them aren't, and all of them are designed to just be self-contained. There are a couple of stories in there that are part of that shared universe. I'm not going to say which ones, though. For now, I'm going to keep that to myself. But the rest of them, they're just meant to be standalone stories, no greater connection to anything else. And really, that applies to all of these stories. It's just meant to be a little compilation where you can read any of those stories on its own, no concern about how it connects to anything else. You are, of course, free to theorize which of the stories might actually fit into that shared universe. And one day you'll find out, but for now, keeping that one to myself. The other question I'm sure some of you have is related to that word on the cover, Kaijupunk. What the heck is that? I've said a couple of times in some of the promos and where I posted it around that it could be the start of a new genre, or at least kickstarting a new genre. So, what does that mean? Well, first I want to clarify that when I say I'm starting a new genre, I realize that there are probably going to be examples out there you can find that would qualify as Kaijupunk that came along well before I did anything. That's not necessarily unusual, mind you. For example, you can find examples of stories that fit all the qualifications. There's a plane going overhead. A really low plane. Yikes. Yeah, that almost never happens. Anyway, like I was saying, in terms of there being previous examples, that's not necessarily unusual. You can, say, find stories that meet all the criteria to classify them as cyberpunk, but they appeared well before the term cyberpunk existed, and you can do the same for steampunk or any of the other genres. The point isn't so much that the genre didn't exist before somebody invented the term, It's that once the term existed, that made it official. And more importantly, it provided creators with an outlet. They could look at it and go, aha, this is where I want to do my work. This is the genre where I want to write my book, make my film, design my clothes, things like that. In terms of what that means for actually defining Kaijupunk, well, I've got a bonus thing at the end of the anthology that gets into way more detail than I'm going to get into here. It's not one of the 8 short stories because it's not a story, it's an essay. That'll give you the full explanation, but I don't want to leave you hanging, so here's a brief answer. Kaijupunk is essentially how to expand the horizons of the kaiju genre. A lot of people look to me as an expert on kaiju. You can't really get a degree in that sort of thing. You can only become an expert by consuming a lot of kaiju media, and I have consumed a lot, let me tell you. I don't know if that really qualifies me as an expert, but I certainly know a lot about it. And I can say that for the most part, the kaiju genre does have a formula it sticks to. It's a formula that works, but there might be some untapped potential there. Every now and then you have a kaiju movie that tries to add a little something extra. You have something that maybe adds an element of espionage or political thriller to the plot. But for the most part, you still have the main idea of giant monsters showing up, wrecking a city, fighting each other, and it generally sticks to the genres of science fiction and fantasy. I mean, heck, at this particular point in time, the kaiju fandom is locked in a debate about whether or not a kaiju story could be told without human characters in it. And that's the most extreme example of different that people can think of for the genre. My question is, where else can it go? That's where Kaijupunk comes in. Kaijupunk is essentially going even beyond that extreme and seeing if kaiju can fit in to other stories. Not every story in this collection is Kaijupunk, but there are 3 in particular that I feel would qualify. One of them inserts kaiju into gothic horror and an old dark house kind of story. Another one is more of a psychological drama. And the third is written as a Shakespeare play. And I mean an accurate Shakespeare play. Not one where you randomly put F at the end of whatever word you want and sprinkle these and thous without a care. I made an effort to have the dialect be as authentic as possible. I've been in a lot of Shakespeare, so I have some exposure to that. So I put a lot of effort into making the dialogue accurate, and there's iambic pentameter, and I made sure the rhythm was on point. At least I hope I did. And those are just the 3 examples that I felt were ready to go. I've got others in the works. Stuff that involves heists. One that's a sick-lit parody. I've got unconventional settings planned and unconventional depictions of monsters, unconventional monsters themselves. There's a whole bunch of untapped potential, I feel, and those are just the ideas I can come up with. Who knows what someone else might come up with? So when I say that I am starting, or maybe even just codifying a new genre, that's what I mean. I'm hoping it catches on. I'm hoping that it can get other people thinking, yes, I can work with this, and I can do something creative here. Because I can't come up with every idea by myself. There are probably other people out there that have great ideas, they just need to know where to do it and how to do it. And hopefully, Kaijupunk catches on, and that becomes a new outlet. That's up to you guys, though. The book has to actually get exposure if that's going to happen. So it falls into your hands in a lot of ways. This is the shortest of my books. It's also the least expensive, if that's any incentive for you to pick it up. Otherwise, though, there's not much more I can really say because, like I said, this is a short story collection. There's no overarching plot. There's only a little bit that connects them thematically, and you basically just have to read them for yourselves. Like I said, it's on Amazon. You can get it digitally, you can get it in paperback. I actually recommend getting it in paperback because there are times where I use different fonts in some of the stories. And Kindle doesn't like any font that is not just a very straightforward one. You can get it any way you want. All I ask is that you get it. But that's your choice as well. So, links are in the description. It's a new collection. It could start a new genre. We will see where this one goes. And yes, I am working on all of those sequels and new stories set in the Omni Vault. But for now, I hope this short story collection gives you at least something to enjoy. And those are all the questions I can anticipate at this point, so I'll call this video done for now. On to the next video, whatever that may be, and more stories in the future. Until such time as we meet again, this is the Omni Viewer signing off.